today's meeting. And with that, Senator Murray, I'll turn it over to you to kick us off.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of our great participants today. But before I address that topic, I do want to briefly address the news that the administration is going to be pursuing steps to ban the import of Russian oil. And I want to let you know where I stand. We need to do what needs to be done to hold Putin accountable and support the Ukrainian people. But at the same time, I want to make sure that Congress is doing everything it can to help families who are seeing higher prices at the pump. Importantly, I do not want to see giant oil and gas corporations making a profit off of this crisis. Big oil executives should not be raking in extra cash while Washington state families are paying more at the pump to stand up for democracy and to support the Ukrainian people. So I'm exploring every legislative option to help lower gas prices for people here at home and hold the giant oil and gas companies accountable so they are not profiting off of this conflict or the sacrifice of American people. With that, again, thank you all for being here as we talk about workforce issues. I want to thank Executive Summers, Joy, James, Jennifer, and especially Carolyn for your willingness to join us today to share your personal story and perspective with all of us. And I'm excited to hear from all of you about how Snohomish County has leveraged its COVID funds to invest in workforce development. This is really an important issue in every community in our state. And I remember back when I was growing up, 6 brothers and sisters, by the way, and my dad got sick and my mom had to step in to provide for our entire family on her own. Thanks to a federal program at the time, my mom was able to go back to school and get a higher paying job to support my family. So I know firsthand what a difference it makes when we have people's back during tough times rather than saying, quote, you're on your own. So when we talk about workforce development, all we're really talking about is creating opportunity. And in my experience, great things happen in our communities when we provide those opportunities. Parents can support their families, people can invest in themselves and their careers, and employers can hire workers with the skills they need to be successful. So investing in workforce development is a win-win-win for Washington State. And as you know, I chair the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, and we recently held a committee hearing on supporting workforce development opportunities. And I've had success in the past negotiating bipartisan legislation on workforce issues. We passed the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act in 2014 and reauthorized the Perkins Career and Technical Education Act in 2018. Now I'm working on figuring out how we can do this in Congress in a bipartisan way to invest in our workforce development. And the stories and the success that we're hearing from Snohomish County today will help shape my work in the other Washington on workforce development. A couple of things. Washington State has made some really great progress rebuilding our economy from the COVID-19 crisis. We've now seen the highest economic growth in nearly 4 decades and added a record 6 million jobs last year and saw the biggest annual improvement in employment since we started collecting data. But our economic recovery is very unequal. So equity is a really important consideration for me when we talk about workforce development.
Yeah.
My priority is,
I don't know how it happened, but that happened.
My priority is making sure that we're investing in every community in every part of our state, especially when we see the unemployment rate for Black workers is twice the rate now for white workers, or how women have accounted for almost 2/3 of the jobs lost during this pandemic. So making sure that we invest in everyone is really important because these inequities really hold our communities back. And we can't build our country stronger when our economy leaves people who are really ready and willing to take on good jobs out of it. And another piece of the puzzle I want to mention is when it comes to building our economy that really works for people, we cannot build an economy that works for working families when parents can't afford childcare, so that they can go to a job or participate in a workforce development program. So I'm working hard to make sure working families can afford and find childcare where they live. And as we recover from this pandemic, I really think we can do so much better than simply returning to a normal that really wasn't working for a lot of working families before this. And a big part of that is helping train and connect people with quality jobs that businesses need to fill. That's why our nation's workforce development programs are so important. High quality work-based learning, registered apprenticeships, and other workforce development programs can help people really grow their own career or develop new skills and start new careers. And when workforce development plans provide assistance with transportation and housing and childcare and getting work gear like uniforms and tools, accommodations for people with disabilities and ways to overcome barriers, that really assures that everyone can access the opportunities to help them succeed. I talked a little bit about how a federal program helped me and my mom and my family get a better paying job to get through hard times. Well, today, a lot of families have had the rug pulled out from underneath them, and they are trying to get through this and back on their feet. And I want them to have the same opportunity my family did. So that's what this is about for me. And I'm really excited today to hear from our friends in Snohomish County who've done some really great work about what they're doing so I can incorporate that as we move forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to County Executive Dave Summers, who's doing an amazing job in Snohomish County on many fronts. Thank you so much, Dave. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you all it's his birthday today. So especially thank you and happy birthday, Dave.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you so much. And I just want to echo some of your comments. This pandemic, we're not through it yet, and the effects of it are going to be long lasting on many families. And it has really highlighted the inequities in our county and region and state. Just simple things like access to internet and being able to work from home or not, having a job. So it's the assistance that's been provided has been fantastic. But as you know, on January 20th of 2020, Snohomish County had the first documented case of coronavirus in the country, and things just have been going ever since. By April of that year, 2020, Snohomish County had almost a 20% unemployment rate. In fact, it was the highest in the state, and I think really probably the highest that we've seen in Washington State for generations, really. So it was a huge hit to us locally. The industries we have that were really hardest hit were retail, education, healthcare, and aerospace manufacturing. So as you know, we're a center of aerospace industry, got Boeing's largest commercial plant. The production lines for the 747, 767, 777, and a lot of suppliers and other aerospace related industries here in Snohomish County. So just in the aerospace sector alone, we lost nearly 7,000 jobs in the early months of this pandemic. So we knew that workforce efforts were really going to be key to our future, to surviving the pandemic, and to really recovery as we come out of this. So workforce is really the backbone of our county and our recovery. So early on, we allocated $8 million of CARES Act funds, really focused on retaining and upskilling existing talent. We created an aerospace workforce grant program in partnership with Workforce Snohomish to retain the talent that's really vital. So retaining talent, keeping it here was paramount for us. The program allowed us to provide subsidized payroll support to companies, and we were able to support over 2,400 workers and keep them employed because of the CARES Act. We also partnered with the Washington Technology Industry Association for a pre-apprenticeship training program, which was focused on software programming skills and job placement, really to support some of our region's technology companies also. So through that program, we were able to secure 40 trainees, all unemployed due to the pandemic, and offered them apprenticeships with other well-known companies such as Nordstrom, Amazon, F5, and others. So making them more mobile and nimble and able to connect with other jobs in the region, support all our businesses. So taken all together, our pandemic response supported nearly 3,500 businesses and over 9,400 workers across the county, and we're very proud of that and very grateful for the support that you've shown us. And it was absolutely essential and critical. We again want to say we know our recovery really is dependent on talent retention and our ability to reskill and upskill workers and supply just an outstanding workforce here in Snohomish County. None of that would have been really possible without the CARES Act funding. So we're very, very grateful. And now I'll turn it over to Joy Emery, the CEO of Workforce Snohomish, and she's been in the engine room of this from day one. So Joy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Executive Summers and Senator Murray, for your thoughtful comments. I feel like my comments are going to be duplicative, but some of the things that you spoke of regarding holistic support for families and households is imperative. We are seeing not just one variable in play, but multitude of complex variables on the ground facing families as they seek to enter and retrain family sustaining jobs. So the demand is there, but there is that gap. In addition, locally responsive funding, where Snohomish County was able to apply CARES Act, was based on deep knowledge of our community and our community needs. That really allowed us to come together as a county, as communities, to identify opportunities for the residents of Snohomish County. So I just want to recap a bit before I introduce our first speaker. So as we are well aware, Snohomish County experienced unprecedented job loss in 2020 and 2021, displacing tens of thousands of people in a wide range of occupations and sectors. At the same time, creating changing skill demands in other industries and increasing demand for workers among organizations that were providing critical services to support Snohomish County residents. Snohomish County mobilized quickly to respond to the situation, allocating CARES Act funding to workforce development to provide unemployed workers and those impacted by the pandemic with new skills and the ability to enter family-sustaining occupations in growing industries. They also to go to work for 45 nonprofits whose volunteer base were severely diminished at the time when human resources were essential to expanding operations and serving our community with food, shelter, and other essential services, and investing in upskilling employees to enable businesses to pivot, pursue new strategies, build new products, and maintain their talented workforce. The vision of the county in supporting workforce development, coupled with CARES Act funding that afforded locally responsive investments, impacted hundreds of workers and households across the county, while providing employers with the talent and people they needed to respond and recover and now grow. One of these programs supported by CARES Act funding was the Tech Training Academy, a pre-apprenticeship program offered by Apprenti. It is my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Carlson, co-founder and executive director of the Washington Technology Industry Association Workforce Institute and Apprenti, to provide an overview of this program. Jennifer?
Thank you, Joy, and thank you, Senator Murray, for everything that you've done, as well as having us here today to speak on behalf of the program we worked through with the CARES Act funding that came through Snohomish County. Our partnership through this CARES Act is really a dovetail of the work that we were already doing in the registered apprenticeship space, but focused very heavily on being responsive and, as Joy pointed out, being nimble in the midst of a pandemic to be able to get people reskilled and back to work quickly. So as you know, our program is focused on placing people directly into job, but this was an opportunity to reskill people that were being affected by the pandemic and were unemployed or long-term unemployed. And our focus has always been on women, underrepresented minorities, veterans for placement. We kept that focus, but then took that to the next level, focusing on those who were dislocated workers as a result of the pandemic. And in the partnership with Snohomish County here, we were able to work with Workforce Snohomish, the county, and a number of community-based organizations to pull in those folks who had been dislocated from those populations. And 77% of the folks that we were able to reskill through this training academy in a pre-apprenticeship environment, getting them prepared for tech roles, were dislocated workers. The income for those who had been employed coming into the program was still only between $30,000 and $39,000 from part-time to full-time employment. And 77% of our placements were from diverse folks, diverse backgrounds. We reskilled them into Java developer roles through an accelerated classroom environment, but we leveraged the classroom curriculum that the industry had already identified as meeting the skill bar that they were looking for, that we had been implementing through our registered apprenticeship model. So in having that taught in that 16-week window at a full-time 40 hours a week, got these folks that came through this fully prepared to be able to go directly to job. And part of our commitment to Snohomish was that we would get them interviews, whereas ordinarily there are employers already teed up to take the apprentices for a registered apprenticeship. This was about the skilling in a pre-apprenticeship. So 100% of the apprentices or pre-apprentices were interviewed by a number of Washington-based companies, many of whom were already listed, like Nordstrom, F5, Amazon, and others. And then we were able to get out of the 90% that finished the classroom environment, 70% went to job and were able to get employed with a median income over $80,000 with their employers. And they were taken on as registered apprentices at that time. So they had that minimum of a year with the employer to be able to skill up into the job. And have been retained. And this opportunity is a little bit different for us, since we do focus on getting people directly into a skilled role. But this opportunity, being nimble, also allowed us to kind of build some new muscle about how to leverage all of the pieces of the registered apprenticeship system and partner with cities during a pandemic, but also during other situations where we can get people reskilled to a level that they could transition into job more quickly, which allows companies to be more responsive in trying to hire more quickly, since there's always that perpetual pain point of time to market. Even in a registered apprenticeship environment. So this funding through CARES Act, we've had some great results, and obviously the retention numbers are there, and that income being significantly greater than what people were earning before they came in is got longevity to it, and is providing both a combination of living wage, family sustaining wage, but also long-term career development opportunities. And Snohomish County, Workforce Snohomish have been great partners. Not all of the folks who came to us through this were able to go into this program. So we also built a network of referral resources through Workforce Snohomish to get people to skill levels that would allow them to take advantage of programs like this. So there were a number of other resources that were kind of built out in a systemic program. One of the beneficiaries of that, of course, is Carolyn, who is joining us today, and she has joined us from Nordstrom and has just been retained past her apprenticeship and been given a full-time offer. So we're very excited for her, and I'm excited for you to hear her story directly. Carolyn?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Senator Murray, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my experience with Apprenti and then just having the experience. Prior to the placement with Apprenti, for me, I was in a workers' compensation adjudicator role, which was definitely an interesting job and impacted by the pandemic, as employers like retailers and aerospace companies lost business and let people go with layoffs. Our work started to be impacted. So I started, when we were working from home and getting extra claims and people are getting laid off, and my colleagues are getting laid off, you start thinking like, maybe now's the time. So I had applied in November to Apprenti, and I heard back like very quickly, had my phone screening pretty quickly. Software development to me is like learning to paint. Like you can do anything you want once you know how to make it yourself. So I was super interested in doing it. The program was from January to May. I would be in a full stack boot camp, learning like really the hottest tech stacks. I know they already said that, but I used to get like 1 or 2 LinkedIn clicks a week on my profile, and now it's just like blown up because everything that I've learned is in demand. So after we successfully passed the boot camp, we had the opportunity to interview with different companies, Nordstrom being one of them, which is really cool because they're, local to Seattle in this area. So I got to interview with Nordstrom, and fortunately, I did get the job or the apprenticeship at that point. And then they put me through another boot camp that covered a little bit more from June through September. And I was brought on as an iOS developer. So I work on Nordstrom's mobile app. If anyone has used it, if not, go ahead and download it. So it's just been wild to like learn the things that before were like the magic behind the curtain. You know, you go to a website, you have no clue how it works. You get a weird error message and you're just like frustrated, close the page. And now like it makes sense. It all makes sense. And I feel like I have the tools to make anything I want. It's really empowering. And with Nordstrom, I was brought on as an apprentice. You get to do like a capstone kind of project. So I had 2 mentors, which is a little bit unusual, but Nordstrom really wanted to support the apprentices and help them succeed. And I was brought on, everyone was super understanding of the pace I was at. I was encouraged to learn and grow and contribute. I got to even do like the hackathon. And like Jennifer said, I did get offered a couple weeks ago to be retained for Nordstrom. So I am going to be a full-time employee. But it was so cool. I met so many amazing people who were all impacted by the pandemic in different ways. A lot of people from aerospace companies, a lot of military people, a lot of people that are single moms, people that were laid off in the pandemic, and getting to meet so many people in such a like precious point in life was really amazing. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carolyn, for sharing that story. I think your story is the story of many people who never expected to be upended in the past couple of years by all we've been through, and you used it in a positive way and had a group around you who helped you get the skills to be able to get to where you are today. And that's exactly what we want for everybody. So really appreciate everybody in Snohomish County for the work you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Senator. So now we have some time for questions from the press. So if you do have a question, you'll see at the bottom of the Zoom meeting, it says reactions. Just use the raise your hand function and we will take questions in the order they come. All right, not seeing any raised hands. So if we do have any questions from any of the reporters that are on with us today, please feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself. Just let us know what outlet you're from, and then go ahead and ask your question to any of our participants. All right, not seeing any questions from the press. We'll turn it over to Senator Murray for any final closing thoughts.
Yeah, well, thank you all so much for sharing the great story. We need to be doing everything we can at every level to help folks in our communities, and getting a job, a good paying job, getting the ability to have the skills is what you all have invested in. It's going to pay off in many, many ways. I look forward to working with all of you as we develop bipartisan workforce development legislation here in Congress to continue to support what all of you are doing. So thank you so much for sharing your time today. And I see the county executive left to get some birthday cake, so he's not with us, but that's all right. But thank you to each one of you again for what you're doing. Carolyn, wish you the very best. Thank you.
All right, thank you, folks. That concludes today's press call. It was recorded, will be distributed widely. And if you have any questions, you know where to find us.